Let me ask you something. If you couldn't tie your own shoes 10 years from now, would you even notice it happening? Or would it creep up on you so slowly that by the time you realized it, it was already too late to stop? That question isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up. Because right now, in this exact moment, something is happening inside your muscles and joints that most men over 60 never think about until it's already stealing their independence. It's not age itself. It's not some inevitable curse written into your genetics. It's something quieter, something that hides in plain sight, something doctors call stiffness. But what it really is a slow disappearance of the freedom you used to take for granted. Think about the last time you got out of bed in the morning. Was it smooth? Or did you have to roll to one side, brace your hands against the mattress, and push yourself up like you were lifting something heavy? Think about the last time you walked up a flight of stairs. Did your knees complain? Did your lower back tighten before you even reached the top? These aren't random inconveniences. They're warning signs. And here's the part that most people never realize. Stiffness isn't just an annoyance you have to live with. It's a slow theft of your independence. And if nothing changes, it only gets worse from here. But stay with me, because this changes everything you thought you knew about aging. If you're someone who wants to stay strong, mobile, and independent as you get older, take a second right now and hit that like button, and subscribe to this channel, because every single week, we share simple, practical strategies here on Golden Age Strength, designed specifically for men over 50 who refuse to let their bodies slow them down before their minds are ready to. Now let's talk honestly about what's really happening to you. Somewhere around your late 50s or early 60s, your muscles and connective tissue start losing water content and elasticity. Picture a rubber band that's been left out in the sun for years. When it's fresh, it stretches easily and snaps right back into shape. But leave that same rubber band out in the heat for a decade, and it becomes brittle, stiff, and prone to cracking the moment you try to stretch it too far. That's essentially what's happening inside your hips, your shoulders, your lower back, and your hamstrings right now. Your tissue is drying out. It's losing its bounce. And every day you don't address it, it hardens a little more. Here's what really breaks my heart about this. Most men aren't lazy. Most men aren't ignoring their health on purpose. They simply were never taught that stiffness is reversible. Nobody ever sat them down and explained that the tightness in their hips isn't a life sentence. It's a signal that certain muscles have gone quiet, certain joints haven't been asked to move through their full range in years, and certain patterns of daily movement have slowly rewritten the way their body operates. It's not your fault. You were simply never given the right information. And that's exactly what we're going to fix today. Because here's the surprising part that most people never expect. You do not need surgery. You do not need expensive supplements. You do not need to spend an hour a day in a gym doing complicated routines you'll abandon within a week. Research published through the American College of Sports Medicine and supported by organizations like the National Institute on Aging has shown that regular stretching and mobility work can meaningfully improve range of motion, reduce fall risk, and ease everyday stiffness in older adults, even when that stretching takes only minutes a day. The key isn't intensity. The key is consistency, and more importantly, choosing the right movements that target the exact areas where stiffness accumulates the fastest after 60. That's exactly why today, I'm walking you through what we call the Golden Reset method. 5 specific stretches, each one targeting a different area where age-related stiffness quietly builds up, and each one designed to be done in your own living room, without equipment, without pain, and without wasting your time on movements that don't actually matter. But before we get into the 5 stretches themselves, I want you to understand something important, because this changes how you'll think about every single stretch we cover today. Your body isn't one single machine. It's more like a factory with different departments, and each department has its own workers. Your hips are one department, your shoulders are another, your spine another, your calves and ankles another. When one department slows down, it doesn't just affect that one area, it forces other departments to work overtime to compensate. That's why tight hips can eventually cause lower back pain. That's why stiff shoulders can throw off your walking posture. Everything is connected, which is exactly why the Golden Reset method addresses the entire system, not just one isolated muscle. Let's start with the first pillar of the method, and I call this one the hip unlock. If there's one area of the body that suffers the most from modern life, sitting in cars, sitting at desks, sitting on couches, it's your hip flexors. These are the muscles that run from your lower spine down through the front of your hip and into your thigh. When you sit for hours at a time, these muscles stay in a shortened position, and over years, they essentially forget how to lengthen. Think of it like a door hinge that's been left closed for too long. Even if the hinge still technically works, it's rusted, it's stiff, and it resists the moment you try to open it wide. This is why so many men over 60 feel that pulling sensation in their lower back or hips when they stand up from a chair. It's not necessarily weakness. Often, it's simply tightness pulling your pelvis into an unnatural tilt. The stretch that addresses this is a simple half-kneeling hip flexor stretch. You kneel on one knee, keep your torso upright, and gently shift your weight forward until you feel a stretch along the front of your hip on the kneeling side. You hold that for about 30 seconds, breathe slowly, and switch sides. Research on aging populations has consistently shown that hip flexor tightness is directly correlated with reduced stride length and increased fall risk, which means loosening this single area can improve the way you walk almost immediately. Now, a common myth I hear all the time is that stretching a tight muscle too aggressively will make it stronger faster. That's simply not true, and it can actually backfire, causing micro tears that make the area feel even tighter the next day. The goal isn't to force your body into a deep stretch. The goal is gentle, consistent lengthening, done regularly, so your tissue slowly regains its natural elasticity over weeks, not minutes. But that's only part of the story, because unlocking your hips creates a ripple effect throughout your entire lower body. And that brings us to the second pillar of the method. I call this one the spine rescue. Here's something most people never think about. Your spine isn't meant to be rigid. It's meant to rotate, bend, and twist throughout the day. But somewhere along the way, most of us stopped rotating our spine entirely. We sit facing forward, we drive facing forward, we watch television facing forward. Over years, the muscles that support rotation, especially through your thoracic spine, the middle portion of your back, simply lose their ability to move freely. Think of your spine like a stack of coins. When those coins are allowed to shift and rotate against each other, everything moves smoothly. But when they're glued into one fixed position for years, the entire stack becomes rigid and resistant to movement. This is why so many men over 60 struggle to look over their shoulder while backing out of a driveway, or feel a strange tightness when reaching into the back seat of a car. It's not just your neck. It's often your thoracic spine that's lost its rotational freedom. The stretch for this is called the seated spinal twist. Sitting upright in a sturdy chair, you plant your feet flat on the ground, place one hand on the outside of your opposite knee, and gently rotate your torso, looking over your shoulder as far as comfortably possible. You hold for 20 to 30 seconds, then switch directions. Physical therapists commonly recommend rotational stretches like this because thoracic mobility is directly tied to shoulder health and even breathing capacity. When your mid-back is stiff, your lungs literally have less room to expand fully, which can quietly affect your energy levels throughout the day. Here's what most people never realize about this stretch specifically. It's not just about flexibility. Improved thoracic rotation has been associated with better balance and reduced strain on the lower back, because when your spine can rotate properly, your hips and lower back don't have to compensate by twisting in ways they weren't designed for. This is one of those small movements with an outsized impact on how your entire body feels and moves. Now here's where things become interesting, because the third pillar targets an area that quietly sabotages your walking mechanics more than almost any other. And I call this one the hamstring release. Your hamstrings run along the back of your thigh, and they play a critical role in how you walk, how you climb stairs, and how you bend down to pick something up off the floor. As we age, and especially if we've spent decades sitting for long stretches, hamstrings tend to shorten and tighten dramatically. This is one of the most common areas of stiffness in men over 60, and it's also one of the most overlooked, because the tightness often gets blamed on the lower back instead. Here's a simple way to think about it. Imagine trying to walk normally while wearing pants 2 sizes too small through the thighs. Every step feels restricted. Every bend feels limited. That's essentially what tight hamstrings do to your natural walking pattern, forcing your lower back and hips to overcompensate for a lack of length in the back of your legs. The stretch here is the standing hamstring stretch, using a chair or sturdy surface for balance. You place one heel on a slightly elevated surface, like a low step or sturdy stool. Keep your legs straight but not locked, and gently hinge forward from your hips while keeping your back flat until you feel a stretch along the back of your thigh. Hold for 30 seconds, then switch legs. A common myth here is that hamstring tightness is simply genetic and can't be changed after a certain age. That's not accurate. Multiple studies on flexibility training in older adults have shown measurable improvements in hamstring range of motion after just a few weeks of consistent stretching, regardless of age. Your muscles remain adaptable far longer than most people assume. They simply need the right, consistent input. Have you noticed tightness in the back of your legs when you bend down to tie your shoes or pick something up? Let us know in the comments because I promise you, you are far from alone. Now let's move to the fourth pillar. And this one surprises almost everyone the first time they hear about it, because it's an area most people completely ignore. I call this one the ankle anchor. Most people assume mobility problems start at the hips or knees, but the truth is, many balance and walking issues actually begin at the ankle. As we age, the calf muscles and the connective tissue around the ankle joint gradually stiffen, reducing what's called dorsiflexion, essentially your ability to flex your foot upward toward your shin. This might sound like a small, insignificant detail, but limited ankle mobility has been directly linked in research to increased fall risk in older adults, because a stiff ankle can't absorb uneven ground the way a flexible one can.